Hello. I am wanting to ask some questions about SMGI so that others can understand and really get a sense of what this is. My experience of SMGI came to this um, sometime last year, and it I didn't really know going in what it was. I knew that I had heard from several other friends, colleagues, that it was some kind of magical modality, some kind of magical hypnosis from a magical person, and that it was the way. And I personally had tried many ways, many ways over the years to really make changes in how I was thinking, feeling, interacting with others. And I hadn't had a lot of success in doing it. I could make small changes. I went most of the traditional therapy routes, as well as doing different courses and reading all of the books on attachment styles and trauma, and all of the books about the body keeping score. I was up to date on all of the latest trauma healing fads or movements, whatever you want to call them. And I'd had some success with tapping. I'd had some success with EMDR, EFT, all of the different things. But when I did the first session in SMGI, it was in a little bit of an unconventional setting. It was at an SMGI retreat, so there were other people around. It was run a little differently, but I knew as I was in the session, something was happening that I'd never experienced before. I could feel the changes happening in real time. It's like I could feel this rewiring and reweaving and things being put down. And I knew as I was in it, I would never be the same. And as I came out of it, I still didn't know what had happened. I've still not really been able to come up with the 3-4 magical sentences to explain what it is. And every time I try, I get a lot of question marks and looks from people. And so I wanted to do this session of us just having a candid conversation and going back and forth so that others could really maybe anchor into something that feels like an aha to them before they delve in. Because unlike other things, you go get a reading, you go to an energy healer, you go to therapy, you kind of know what to expect. So it feels like there is a little bit of I don't want to call it a resistance, but some blank, some voids for people and really understanding before they make the bridge. I have said to people, I promise you this works 100% of the time for everyone. And they're like, you always say that about stuff. And I'm like, no, I really promise you. And after the fact, they're like, you were right. But I speak so highly of it that people are like, that can't be real. But it is real and it is true. And so I want, if you can just sort of delve in from whatever place in whatever order makes sense to try to explain, what is this?
It's magic. I remember you at that retreat, Michelle. And I, before we met at the retreat, I knew you to be just such a professional, so gifted and talented in your work. And I remember I really remember 3 specific moments with you in particular. And I think one was when I was referring to the 9 survival responses that become trauma reactions. And I just saw, it's like your whole body, the light bulb went off and your whole body just relaxed as if it gave you permission, because it removed the pathology. It's like, and this is a big part of what we do in SMGI is we have enough understanding of the value of all emotions, whether they're so-called positive or negative, so we can support a person in recognizing that's completely natural. It's trying to help you, just like a survival response is trying to help you survive or connect and love. So I remember, and it was, of course I felt that in my body, and who doesn't love that when all of a sudden someone can just not be holding themselves against what they perceive as not working right, or some kind of pathology. And then the other moment I remember is when we were facilitating a person in the center, and her husband had passed away a few months earlier. And I knew that you are a hypnotherapist, the Dolores Cannon, quantum,
the past life.
Yeah. And so this person that's being facilitated in the group of us around her, as I was guiding her, first she talked to her dead husband, and then she went to a past life where she found out that she put a curse on several people who tried to kill her. And then we helped her take back the curse because her energy was in that. And then she connected to a child version of herself that she needed to rescue and integrate, which she did. But I remember like the look on your face. It's like, how is all this happening so just quick, easily? It's just because SMGI is so simple. And I love, I have learned and benefited so much from so many modalities. And yet I was in such horrific, torturous pain. I didn't have time to have something that worked just a little.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that those modalities that didn't work for me or didn't work well enough for me won't work 100% for someone else. But, because of where I come from, SMGI was developed to support me and people like me that are highly traumatized, highly defended, pretty competent in the world. I mean, most people wouldn't know. And so things tend to be harder for us to receive and surrender to because we've experienced so much trauma. And so part of the magic of SMGI is how spacious and invitational it is. So the person always knows they have a sense of agency. So they always feel a sense of safe enoughness.
Yeah.
And, safety is one of the things that we try to establish, safety and rapport and all that. But, SMGI kind of does it. It's kind of in your periphery if you choose it. We don't tell you, go to a safe place, be safe now, right? It's just gently making offers to you that you can choose or not choose. And it helps the nervous system to feel less threatened. And so then it has an opportunity to consider, would I like to try that? And if I don't like it, I don't like it. And I don't know what it's going to be, but would I like to try that? So, SMGI, when you were talking about the modalities that you were working with and you were getting a little bit of benefit, I needed to get a lot of benefit quickly because if I didn't have a baby daughter I wasn't willing to abandon, I would have taken myself out so many times because nothing was working. If anything helped, it was temporary, but bless the hearts of those people that tried to help me because oftentimes it made it worse. And they were freaked out. So I freaked out a lot of healers and was very frustrated. And it took me 5 years and it was, so it was grueling, but I was drawn to the pieces that are part of SMGI. I realize now, I was carrying the template of it in me when I arrived on the planet. And then I was drawn to teachers and protocols to recognize, oh yeah, that's part of it. Oh yeah, that's part of it. Oh yeah, that's part of it. And then string it together with some missing pieces that
Mhm.
aren't other modalities. And, you know, you said fad, and trauma is like a fad nowadays, right?
Yeah.
But when I started doing this work 22 years ago, mainstream psychotherapy was still saying that PTSD isn't curable. You just have to learn to live with it.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I wasn't going to argue. I was just quietly healing my own trauma and helping other people heal theirs. So but it was kind of frustrating because in those early days, clients would be embarrassed and ashamed to say, well, I got traumatized, because trauma was only for someone, you know, that had experienced the most horrific war-like or ritual abuse or whatever. And wow, how the tides have turned. Now everyone owns that they've had trauma and it's not fringe therapies anymore to address it. And so I'm grateful for all the forerunners who I learned from and picked up pieces from, and all those other modalities that are now, they just kind of bloomed like, you know, after a rainy winter, where the wildflowers have just exploded everywhere. And so, yeah, the fad of it, in one sense, they're sound bites, you know, and like
Mhm.
you look on Instagram, they're all kind of saying the same thing. And that goes back to the books that that you've read and may have read. There's a lot of theory, but not a lot of actual how to do it. And that was the burning motivation in me when I would attend all these workshops and train with healers. It's like, well, they would tell me what to do, but they didn't know how. So, and then the trite things that really pissed me off, just that was perfect because it really burned a fire inside of me to
Mhm.
find a way. But they would say things like, you know, I'd be writhing in pain, my teeth would be chattering, and they would say, just trust, or just let go and let God, just be with the pain. And you know, it's like, how do I do that? I didn't know how, and I would ask them how. They were silent until I started getting really sassy, you know, and said, you have a dagger in your eyeball and just trust. You
Mhm.
have an axe in your forehead and just be with that pain, you know. And did they come forward and embrace me? Like, no, you know, they backed far, far away. So how to get it done became my passion. How to get people out of suffering. And you know what? Pain is part of life, but suffering is very different than pain. Suffering to me is like the pain that just never ends. And it's like you try to put the kibosh on it and maybe you get some temporary relief and here it's back again. And that's another thing that's different about SMGI. It is not a get rid of modality. Now, I'm a human being. If I have pain, I want to get rid of it. I would like to take a pill, even if it's a, you know, natural turmeric instead of aspirin, anti-inflammatory. I'm human. I want to get rid of pain. I don't want to, and I don't want to experience pain. And lucky me, that never works for me. So so then I have to turn towards it like we do in SMGI, get, you know, call for help, turn towards it, find out what needs to happen here. And it's usually something really simple, easy, surprising, poignant, and really enriching. And then I realize afterwards, it's like, oh, I'm glad that the, you know, the turmeric tablet didn't make it go away,
Mhm.
because I was able to experience something within myself that helps me know more who I am and what I'm capable of, and connects me more to love and meaning. You know, why be here in this life on this planet at this time? So those are the few things that come to mind with what you were saying. One other thing, though, it irks me a little bit. Oh, a couple of years ago, it was before COVID. So whenever that was, the time's kind of all topsy-turvy now since COVID, but went to a 2-day event with Peter Levine in San Francisco.
Mhm.
And, therapists flew in from wherever they flew in. You pay for the conference, but you take the days off of work, which, whatever that costs you. And, and you leave, and there's not really any practical tools to take back to your practice. You get a lot of theory and like, here's why it's good, here's why it's helpful, and, take the longer training course. So, yeah, I understand their training is 3 years long, and I just saw a recent one with Bessel van der Kolk, and so I read the bullet points of what you're going to learn there, and it looked like I could read that in the book. So why would I, if I could read it in a book? Now, nothing against that. It's just that my path and the path of SMGI is about, let's just do it. And even though we can't entirely explain what it is or how it works, I mean, we're still understanding that all the time as we see it unfold before our eyes. As you experience it, things change extremely quickly. Now, years ago, I didn't believe that anyone could really get much done in one session. As you meet, you get introduced, you start, you lay the groundwork. And about like 50 people came to me because Susie Smith said I changed her life. This work changed her life. So I'm thinking, who is this Susie? I look up in my file, Susie Smith had come one time. So, my clients have taught me so much. I had all of my limiting beliefs naturally about what needs to happen and what's not going to work and how hard it's going to be and how much it's going to take. But my clients have just shown me like how miracles can just happen so easily. And I have such a variety of clients. Some take a lot longer to make the changes they want to make. And some are just like instant. And some of them, it's like, wow, what I would like to be more like that. Thank you for modeling that for me. So those are some of the things that come up.
So a couple questions. When you mentioned that you and your own trauma were really in this writhing pain and suffering, people will say to me, well, I have physical pain. So SMGI is not, mine isn't emotional. And I go, okay. So if you could talk a little bit about when you say that you were in pain without going too much into the, having to delve into it, what did it present as to you? Because I even have clients that this has worked for that have had years and years of like autoimmune stuff completely work itself out where none of those symptoms are showing up. And I mean, like really quite profound experiences and healing on a physical level. So if you could talk about how this really does weave into the physical piece as well, because this isn't just about emotions and thinking and all of that. It's so much bigger than that. And I think what you were referencing in your suffering was very tied to physical, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So just a little disclaimer, SMGI does not diagnose or treat or cure anything, right? And, there have been many books written by physicians about guided imagery, creative visualization, mental imagery, various names for it, where terminal illnesses have gone into remission.
Yes.
Right. So, and they're not, and they can't, like in one of the books, I'm sorry, I don't recall the author, but they were telling the story of a patient who visualized Pac-Man, from that old time video game when I was a kid, eating the cancer cells, and then lo and behold, they couldn't find any cancer. So, but then, and I've had clients like sent to me by Stanford University that had read that book, and they'd tell me, okay, do the Pac-Man thing with me. Right. And so it's like, well, okay, but that's not exactly how it works, because how it really, really works is that your own inner lexicon of symbols, metaphors are what are most powerful. And so whatever comes forth for you is what's going to be most effective for you. And we don't know, when I've worked with people that have had a terminal diagnosis, I don't know if their sacred soul path is to magically transform this, or just to go out in a particular way with additional resources or
Mhm.
with different attitude. So back to your original question. Excuse me. Yeah, back pain is what you could call it. There was a pain in my back going down my legs. And what it felt like was that my skin was being slowly peeled off of my body. And there was a rusty serrated knife in my back being twisted. And sometimes I couldn't walk, and I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sit down. I could either stand up against a wall or bend over against a bed, but I couldn't sleep. And then I would get temporary relief, with chiropractic or different massage body workers, different energy healers. But then it always came back. And, and MRIs, and, all the conventional medical things. And once my daughter was finished nursing, then I tried the drugs, the pharmaceuticals, and those didn't work either. So one day my former husband threw a Smithsonian magazine at me and said, read that article. And the article was about people who had had x-rays and MRIs and their backs were totally whacked, but they had no pain. And other people that they couldn't find anything, and yet they had all this pain. So, okay, interesting. But long story short, as I just continued on my healing journey, what I came to understand that the physical pain was rooted in post-traumatic stress from an extremely violent childhood, things that I've just like put aside and kept going forward in life, like we need to do. So physical symptoms can surprisingly be minimized, moderated, and sometimes disappear entirely. But you know what? Everything is a physical symptom. Like if we have emotional pain, we feel that in our body.
Mm-hmm.
That's another difference with SMGI, is how it partners with the body.
Yes.
It's a partnership. It's not mind over matter. Right? I think the world's about getting enough of anything being over us. Right? We don't want any more tyrants telling us what we have to do, what we need to do, what we can't do, what we can do. And of course, even if we're obedient because of the automatic submit response to stay safe, it creates resistance in us. We're all free agents. None of us want to be forced to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if you're in a prison camp, you're going to do whatever the bosses say so you can survive. Good for you. The trouble is, most of us don't realize that we're either out of the prison camp or we're not in one anymore. So because our biology and parts of our psyche are still stuck back there in time, looking out for us, trying to remind us, of similar dangers and how to survive them.
One of the first steps in SMGI is turning inward and giving your body the gift of your attention, and then connecting with your body and asking, what is your body's response from getting this gift of your attention? And over, clients say their body's response is, where have you been?
Yeah.
It's like it's the first moment of them really meeting one another and giving their body that attention in a non-threatening, non-demanding way. And then another response is almost this like too good to be true, where their bodies are like, oh, I get this all to me right now. I'm not competing with your phone and your kids and your da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like that focused attention, that gift of attention. It feels like that's when the body and the subconscious right there in that moment say, yes, let's keep going, because of that gift of attention. that happens in the first 5 minutes of the session.
Yeah.
It's like this agreement, this oath, this contract.
Yeah. I imagine most people can relate to being a kid. And some study came out, and the 80 or 80 or 90% of the words kids hear every day are commands: brush your teeth, get dressed, get in the car, stop that. And most of us can remember the hunger just for that kind of attunement, just parent and me, just it doesn't have to be 24 hours a day, just like for a few moments. And how really soothing that is to the system. What a strong desire we all have for that. And our bodies are like, they're beyond, they say a dog's the man's best friend, but your body is your ultimate best friend. It is taking the blows for you. It's taking blows from you. And it is trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you healthy. And it has a mind of its own. Right. And it's this partner that you get to be with as long as you're alive here on this planet. And kind of like a beloved pet, one day you're going to have to leave it behind. So once you open up that channel between you and your body and begin to cultivate a new kind of relationship, everything is possible. And, because you're wise and because you've had experience doing this work with clients and getting their feedback, you totally get it. But sometimes people come in and they're like, well, when are we going to get to the hypnosis? Right? When are you going to hypnotize me? Or, and it's like, they're waiting for something dramatic, like, they've seen in the movies or at the fair or on TV. And that's okay. And they can have a 45-minute journey and be wondering the whole time, well, when is she going to hypnotize me? I don't feel like I'm in meditation. What is this? I'm talking to her. And then when they open their eyes at the end, they realize, whoa, because of the contrast, I was somewhere really deep, but it didn't seem like hypnosis. It didn't seem like deep meditation. And that's part of what SMGI is about also, is that on your feet in the middle of life, you can move your attention into your body, work together with your body to regulate your nervous system. In SMGI terms, calm, settle, and stabilize your nervous system. Because when our nervous system is stressed, the euphemism of the stress response, but, in SMGI trauma informed reality, it's the I could die response.
Right.
And so when our body is in threat, our perception narrows and we can only really perceive what's relative to survival. But when we're able to calm, settle, stabilize our nervous system, then our perception expands. We have so many more options, more choices, and a greater capacity to meet whatever is in our sphere.
One of the things that I do feel like I've had this lovely contrast because of being trained in the past life regression and the traditional induction scripts and all of that. And knowing and watching clients, watching their eyes when their eyes are closed, telling like where the brain wave state change is happening as I'm in the inductions. And the first time that I watched an SMGI session, I was like, wait a minute, you just got them into that hypnagogic state within 3 seconds. What is happening here? In that moment, I was like, you just saved me 20 minutes out of every session.
Yeah.
As soon as they turn inward, the brain wave state changes.
Yeah.
And then they do throughout the session, they'll go lighter, deeper. I do have people that are constantly riding that edge of almost sleep, and then I'll have to kind of, do what we do to walk that line. But regardless of what version of in, deep, not deep, in, out, it works all the same. What the results are the same. And that's what is profound about it, is you can do it. I've had success with it while I'm in a heated discussion with someone in real time. I'm behind a waterfall, letting the water hit me, and this person's talking to me. And normally my alarms and my nervous system would have been in extreme shock. And I was like, I'm in Hawaii behind a waterfall. This is kind of great. And I'm just, because once you turn your attention inward, you can't have your attention in two places at the same time. I can't be in their story and their narrative while I'm focused on my body. So it's this magical piece of, if I'm focused on my body, everything else is backstory or the background noise. It changes where the focus is. Is my focus on the plant on the table, or is it on the glass that's in front of it? And like, I can pick. I have choices now.
Yeah. It's so simple, right? And of course, when people experience the session or do the training, then they learn how you do that, right? Because I can write it down in a book, do this, this, and this. And yet we have certain expectations about how hard things need to be. So we can't quite believe what's available to us and what we're capable of. So that's part of the benefit of having a guide, because our bodies get entrained with the people that we're with. And, the guide is doing it for themselves as they're inviting you to do it. And so then you can more easily find your way to that. And after a few times, it's like, oh, wow. And using it and recognizing the difference it makes, not only in your experience, but what's really fun is if you are in a relationship or in a work situation where you're presenting to a lot of energies, just doing this yourself, you can visually see a demonstrable change and shift in the people in the room.
Absolutely.
They settle into their bodies, and then they're like more human. Now you can collaborate. And so that's what, collaborate is a huge banner over this work. It's about collaborating with your body, with your inner wisdom, with your mad, your sad, your scared parts, and making it more easy to collaborate with others. And we can't control anyone or make anyone do anything, but make it easier for them to be willing to collaborate with us, so that it's like, okay, we have a challenge here. How can we work together to find a solution? So, SMGI is not just about, I want to get rid of this pain, or I want to make more money, or whatever a person comes in for. It's about relating with life, with nature, with human beings, with yourself. It's a way to be oriented in life, much like, what we hear about Native peoples, where they would, hear the song of the plant and they would know, if it was poisonous or how to use it. So this way of being attuned to the self, so that from that locus, we're able to be more attuned to what is around us.
Yeah. One of the things I hear clients say, because they don't really have a category to put it into, because it's not 50 minutes a week. It's set up to be in series of 3 sessions, roughly, hour and a half to 2 hours each. So that, as a starting point, is a little unconventional for people to understand as something that they can contextualize against something else. So often they go, we're talking about 6 hours, right? 3 sessions, 2 hours a piece. And so they'll have a little bit of not really knowing how to engage with that. And so what I'll say is, this is different. This is not what you've done, but how many years have you been in therapy? What has the net cost been? So perhaps look at this from a different perspective. If you look at it more from a 6 hour, the equivalent of like, it's not equivalent, but just financially, it's
Mm,
extremely equivalent to 6 hours of therapy. In
mhm,
fact, it's less expensive than what my therapy cost per
mhm,
50 minutes. Um, so I've often worded it that way of really, if you look at this as far as time in, this is less expensive typically than therapy. And they're wanting sort of the permission granted about that
mm,
because they have a relationship with what is okay to spend
mm.
to heal themselves. And
Yeah.
then another question that they'll say is, well, I'll be done in 3, right? Will I get what I need out of 3? Because again, they're thinking in terms of financial. And I say, well, your life will be different in 3. But after that, you're going to want more. You're going to want
Agree.
more healing. You're going to want more of this magic.
Mm.
But it is always there. If you want to come back, if you want to keep going, you can. If you want to sit with the 3 and that feels great to you, you can. But what they start out with is a way to try to negotiate internally how it's okay to do this series of 3 that feels a little bit of a pinch for them, simply because it's set up in a way that's different than weekly therapy at 50 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So first thing I want to say is I have nothing against psychotherapy. In fact, I was just out to dinner with one of my dear friends who's a brilliant psychotherapist last night. And psychotherapy, in the hands of a skilled practitioner, right? Just like any profession, there's people that don't go there, or, a lot of people that are mediocre and some people that are genius. And so just anything that your soul is drawn to, that brings you benefit, I support that. And psychotherapy is not designed, the training for the most part doesn't include work below the neck, in the subconscious, in the
Mhm.
superconscious, in the deeper self. I mean, there are some little offshoots, but in general, it's more working with the left brain, and that's just how the training is, and can be really beneficial for people to get permission from their left brain to explore things and to begin to understand that they're not just a fuck up. So most of my clients have had a lot of therapy or done a lot of work in 12-step programs. So, or they just have a lot of belief, because I am a clinical hypnotherapist, and SMGI includes what I have found to be the best aspects of hypnotherapy. But some people are just coming in, hypnotize me, right? And they're just, they're those people that I want to learn from, because they just say, let's do this, and then boom, they get it done.
Mhm.
So there's that piece. People, I have a personal belief that your soul knows what it's doing. So however long you spend in therapy, and I have clients that are psychotherapists and they have a psychotherapist, and I'm part of their team, and and I'm a regular part of their
Yep.
team. And
Yep.
if they're, a new relationship or a new project, we might meet every week. And just for general maintenance, we might meet once a month, but I am part of their team. Um, so going back to it's different. That's part of what's great about it,
Yeah.
right? You've done all you can with, what you're familiar with. So this is something that works in a different way. And the 3-session kind of cycle was just shown to me by clients over the years. It's like, and so when people ask me, they can choose. You want to just come in for a single, see what it's like? But most people work with me in sets of 6 sessions at a time, and they might work, multiple sets of 6 sessions. And, like oftentimes after session number 18, then, maybe they'll start stretching it out, but they'll continue, because the more you do, the more you get, but not over the course of years, over the course of weeks.
Right. Yes.
And when it comes to paying, I get it. Most people aren't self-employed. So like a certain dollar amount seems like, well, that's really high, because they don't realize you've got your rent to pay and your business expenses and blah, blah, blah. So we don't really have to worry about any of that, or even so much worry about explaining or helping them justify, because everybody's going to have, I don't know if you remember this, but when I was a chubby kid, there was a thing called fat camps. And so it's like, the chubby housewives would go to fat camp, and and they could get whatever they wanted. And I kind of fantasize about that as a kid, but, and then as I adolesced and was doing the, all the weird ass diets, I experienced and, witnessed that, especially with that topic, if you can get me what I want, I'll find a way to give you $10,000 or 20,000 or 30 or whatever. So, that when in my 20s, when I was devouring business books, one of the salesman's axioms that I remember and have carried with me is that price is never too high, desire is too low. So it's like, yeah, they want help, but how much do they want help? And so that goes to their fears. And it's not really ever about the money, because you can find money, you can work that out somehow. It's about those universal fears that people have with deeper work, that they intuitively know that they're going to feel their feelings, and they're afraid that if they do, they won't be able to stop. They know that they're going to change, and they're afraid of what they'll leave behind if they do. So not everybody's ready for change, right? It's like, even a bad love is better than no love at all, an old song, right? So, and they're afraid that if they go too deep, they might in fact find out that their worst fears about themselves are true. Those lies they've been told about, you're no good, you're repulsive, you're bad, whatever it is. So it is different, and that's part of its value. And of course, with all the different SMGI practitioners, they all have different price points that, so, there's always somebody, if you truly, have an issue with, you just can't find two pennies to rub together, then there will be a practitioner that can work with you and help you change that.
Right.
And that's the other thing about SMGI. We don't perceive anyone as a victim. Because if your soul knows what it's doing, right now, you're living out of your car. Okay. Your soul wants to have some kind of experience that comes with living out of your car. And so what else do you need to get out of that experience? And how would you like to change it, if you would? Okay, let's see what needs to happen so that you can change that. So you don't have to be successful, quote unquote, successful already, and you just want to make more success. I mean, everyone is successful already because they're still alive.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting what you said about the desire and the cost. After doing SMGI myself and it changing my world, I just had this instinct of knowing I have got to learn this modality so that I can share this with my clients. As someone who does Akashic record readings, mediumship, the experience up until then was sharing with my clients past life information, their soul's blueprint, what they came to do, but they're very much a passenger in that experience. They can take the information or leave it. And one of the things I often see inside of their Akashic records are, this is the core wound, this is what you came in with. You're meant to transmute that wounding and turn it into your superpower so that you can have the ripples out and help others, but you walk that path first. And they'd say, great, how do I do that? And I'd go, well, that's not my job to tell you how to do that. I'm only here to read your records. And so then when this came up, it was like this, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the how.
Yeah.
And so I partner that people will get readings. And then it's this natural piece of, and if you want, this is not a requirement for you to follow what you came here to do, but if you would like to, this is the easiest, fastest, most gentle, profound way to walk that path. And then they become the healer. They are the ones, this agency, the experience that they're now going from where I was telling them what I would see in their records to them walking that inward journey.
Yeah.
Was everything. But when I knew I had this instinct, I had to do this training course, the 6-month training course. Honestly, I hadn't done any true, I'd done the being trained in the hypnotherapy to do the QHHT, but it's really a self-guided, there's really honestly not much to it, where this was an actual 6-month class with, via Zoom, but with colleagues, but I hadn't done anything integrated like this since college. And so I looked at the financials and I was like, my first thought was, well, this is awesome, but I can't do this. I couldn't afford to make that happen. But I just knew, I just dropped into the no, this is only a yes. And so it clearly just unfolded how it would be a yes. But it was because the desire was, I knew I had to. There simply was not anything other than that yes. And so that thinking that I had or would have had just fell away because of how strong the pull was, that I knew I would be supported by the universe to get me to that place because of the implications of how many people it would change. And it just happened, and I never had to think about it. And again, this isn't about finances, but the dividends, it's, the return on investment was 5 times what I paid for the course within 6 months. I can't and have not heard of another ROI, if you want to get all businessy about it, that is that fast.
And in a way, SMGI is about ROI. It's about profit. And I remember, I don't know, 15 or so years ago, when intuitively I was just getting, it's about profit. And I was like, what? And then I had the next day I saw the Peace Nicks on the corner with their signboards, and they had a Jesus quote, what does it profit a man, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my sign. And so as I played with that, it's like, oh, duh, of course, because you as the client intend to get more out of it than you invested in it. Your money, your time, your courage. Me as the guide, I intend to get more out of it than I invested in it. And not just the money, but like to be uplifted, to be inspired, to have how to heal modeled for me yet again in another nuanced way.
Yeah.
So it is really about profit, and it's really, I know that my clients, the people that are drawn to me, are what I call love workers. They're people that really at base, love is the most important thing to them, and they want to change this world for the better. So SMGI, it really, whatever someone comes in for, I want to improve my golf swing. It doesn't matter. Every circle of any institution in this world needs people that are embodying their authentic selves, radiating that and activating that possibility for others. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And then it's kind of tricky with getting the word out about the class, because, so many of the marketing things are the opposite of SMGI, like, do it or else something bad will happen, right? It's like, yeah, no, we just can't do that. That's not what SMGI is about. You get to choose, feel into your body. And And oftentimes many people, you know, at the last minute, the energy of that knowing builds up, and then the last minute, you know, are there any spaces left? But you know, it's just like when you read a book, it's not for you to necessarily learn something new, but for you to remember what you already know deep inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about the work, you know, for individual sessions with various guides or the course, it's really, again, for you to connect to what you already know inside of you, and to bring that forth more and more in ways that are profitable for you and for your sphere of influence.
Yeah. And it's interesting how, you know, you mentioned the golf swing. I have had great success with SMGI with 11-year-olds. And recently I had amazing success with someone who, well, she had the success, not me. You know, of an 87-year-old who came for one specific thing, and she's like, what is happening here? I can't even understand this. So it's got such a place in so many aspects of the human experience. You mentioned whether somebody comes to heal trauma or triple their income, there's so many things that are done inside of the SMGI space. I often see that we do clear what's in the way first. That is what comes up in the body as the right thing in what order. You mentioned that. That's one of the things that we don't hold anything tightly and loose in SMGI. Everything is very loosely held. And as the facilitators, we're simply the Sherpas helping the clients up the mountain, but their body, their most complete inner wisdom are the pieces that are saying what needs to happen in what order and in what way. So I have seen that what really typically happens first is essentially is releasing the trauma. And then after that, there's so much fun magic that then comes in with the seed words and the creating inside the, you know, if you want to call it quantum field, that which they desire, the ripples out in the 3D reality to happen, you know, right from the etheric plane conversations, having soul to soul conversations with people saying everything that which you would have loved to said in the 3D, but isn't appropriate. I've seen profound changes almost instantly inside of relationships. The second they walk out the door, they'll call and say, you'll never believe it. The conversation I just had with my boss or my spouse or my daughter, what happened? It was like they were there for that conversation too, and explaining because they were. And what this does is it really reveals for people that there's so much more going on than meets the eye. And that this inner journey will change how they see being human.
And see themselves as creators of their experience. I used to be so annoyed by, you create your own reality. It's like, I am not torturing myself, bitch. Stop bludgeoning me with that. But it's, you know, there's a nuanced understanding that comes with you create your own experience of reality. Right. And so how do you do that? You have experience in your inner world of a different reality. Your biology lives that experience and all the feel-good hormones and chemicals that come with that, and knows now that it's a reality. And things, it's like, oh, that can be a part of our reality. And then it starts to become our reality in our outer world. And you know that saying, you treat people or you teach people how to treat you. Right. That is like a byproduct of doing the work. People start treating you differently, more respectfully. They treat you better because of what they're sensing about the shifts in you. And parents, often, times parents are concerned about their children with the various challenges their children have, whether they're very small children or adolescents. And what I've seen is if the parents will do just a few sessions, they tell me, oh my gosh, my kid that wouldn't talk to me, now she's sidled up to me. She's asking me questions. She's sharing her day. It's like, we didn't like sit down, have a talk. Now here, this is what we need to do. We're going to make some changes around here. No, it's as if by magic, but we all carry this creative power within us to create change within us that is then going to affect that which is without us and around us.
Yeah.
So creators, it's really, we don't really lead with, here's what we don't lead with that SMGI takes you to. It's spiritual work. We don't lead with that. It's like helping you change what you want to change, right? Get out of pain, end your suffering. But it is naturally spiritual. We don't direct it that way. But oftentimes people will say to me, oh, I was surprised at how spiritual it was. So we also don't lead with, you are a creator of your own reality. Come, let me help you create your reality. It's like, that just feels like a heavy burden. It's like, here is an SAT test, 5-year-old, take it, or you don't get to pass out of, you got to stay in your room, locked in your room. It's like that kind of burdensome energy. And, the inner realm is about play. It's about,
yes,
build something in the sand and then knock it over or let the sea take it. But just play, just create things. If you don't like it, that's okay. All right. Do something else. So that is one of the beauties of creating in the inner world, is that, it's not in stone. It's not immovable. It's not like, oh my gosh, am I going to choose vinyl floors or travertine tiles? Oh, right. Because once you make that decision, it's not as easy to change. But in the inner world, you can experience a lot of different realities and notice how it feels in your body. So therefore, you are increasing your relationship, the quality of your relationship, and your trust in your inner guidance system that lives in your body.
You reference play. What I love sharing with clients is, how you keep hearing that, like, you got to do the shadow work. You got to do the shadow work. You got to go dig in the dirt. You have to go down into the underworld and beg Callie to save your soul. Like, and what's amazing is, like, sure, if you want to go it that route, it's available, it's out there, but you can get to the same mountaintop, that same freedom and sovereignty and joy through this easy, gentle way. I've only ever seen inside of SMGI this playful frequency, even when someone's yelling at somebody in the etheric plane conversations, there's still a lightness to them, a freedom, a frequency of expansion that's so different than shadow work. And the results of being set free, in my personal experience, are profoundly larger than the more traditional shadow work, where you just hope for the best when you pack everything back up that didn't get, like, there's a way in which you can navigate this inner world that keeps feeding through your body these feel good chemicals and hormones and more ideal allies and comforting presence and more paths to walk. And the way that we play inside there just happens naturally, because I do have clients that say, you don't get it. I'm all in my head. I don't know how to play. I don't even think I know how to imagine. They are so sure when they walk in. They're like, these are the things I'm bad at, so I will be your first client it doesn't work with. And then after the fact, they're like, I don't get it. I'm not even good at those things, and they just naturally happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, SMGI is not without poignancy, because when we meet our lost, fragmented, exiled parts, um, our our love for them flows forth in
Hmm.
most cases, and we feel theirs for us. And it's like, you know, it can be like a tearful reunion, you know, from a long lost family member that you miss so much. And so there is a sweet poignancy that comes with the rescues of some of those usually child aspects, but it could be a past life aspect, or it could be a future aspect, um, or it could just be an archetypal power of the person that is what they need now, and what they can safely bring back online and embody and express because of where they are in their life now. So, you know, that's another beautiful thing about SMGI, is it really holds and encompasses the entire human experience. And, you know, and I have had clients, oh, my friend Betty said, you did some shadow work and I want to do some shadow work today. Let's do shadow work. Or whatever they ask for. It's like, okay, well, let's ask your inner wisdom, you know, to give you that. And it will show you what is most beneficial for you to experience today. That's not up to me or you. If we try to force shadow work, then, you know, anything that's forced creates a lot of resistance. Anything that you're afraid of, you know, that was one of those universal fears. I'm afraid that the deeper I go, the more I'll find out it's true that I'm bad. Right. And that's another thing, you know, SMGI is like the most loving mother or grandma, where, honey, whatever you've done or has been done to you, it's all healable. You're still lovable. You're perfect. Yeah. And so that's kind of the energy that it has. So if you are taken to parts of you that are hidden from you, it doesn't feel, again, like pathology. It just feels like something that got lost or that you needed to separate from because you needed to. And whereas oftentimes, like with many things, and that's one of the dangers of you and I talking about this and putting out in the world, because people will make it mean what they make it mean based on what they already understand.
Right.
So like with shadow work, it's kind of been understood as the bad parts of you, the bad, you know, your disowned parts because bad, your flawed parts. And so that creates a lot of resistance in people because they've already had, you know, an overflowing cup of all of those mean things sent to them, whether it was parents or siblings or school teachers or bosses or what, clergy, you know. And so that has been found not to help. Gosh, what was it? Maybe 10 years ago or so, they had some TV shows where this skinny bitch went into a fat family and then showed them pictures of, look how hideous you're going to be, little kid, if you keep on this trajectory, and I'm going to whip you all into shape. And, you know, that, I don't even know if that show lasted a season, because, you know, and then there were, for a while, they were saying, shame those people, shame them. And now, you know, it's, if you were going to do that, you'd be shaming all day, but it doesn't work. It does not work. It creates resistance. And then you get more of what is already there, trying to hold the person up, keep them stable, protect them, whatever good thing it's trying to do at base from its own limited perspective. So that's another thing about shadow work, parts work, archetype work, inner allies. It's bringing together all these different facets and aspects so that they're all working together. They're not like, you know, taking charge over here based on their limited perspective. They're all working together for the central self, right? Because a lot of times our central self is like, you know, the passed out drunk parent in the living room and the kitchen's on fire and the 4-year-old has to somehow save it all. So we all of us have had our parts take over to protect us. And yet those parts aren't who we really are. They're just parts of us that are doing their best they can without our conscious awareness to participate with them and direct them. That's really where the directiveness comes in SMGI, because it's very invitational, very respectful, filled with agency. But as you start to get to know your parts, you become more and more aware of your central self that can know those parts and dialogue with those parts, observe those parts, attune to those parts and give them what they need in your inner world, and remain your stable true self, around which all of those parts are a constellation that revolves around you.
There's something that you said about bringing, or it being the mother, it being the soft place to fall. For me, it was really the antidote to years and years of like, I had my whole life operated from this very critical self-criticism, self-critical place. And I largely found it to be pretty useful to get to high success in lots of different areas. And so when I would go into therapy week after week, and she'd say, but what about the inner child? I'm like, screw her. That was so long ago. I don't have time for that. And it seemed like, you keep wanting me to talk about this inner child. She's annoying to me. I don't want to go get her. I had rage around this idea of having compassion for myself. It seemed like annoying, and I didn't have time for it. I didn't want to do it. I had a true resistance to anything that was going to shift me out of this high functioning, critical voice, drill sergeant of how I was running my life. And there's fear under that
yeah, of course,
if I unpack this criticism and I move into self-love, who's going to pay the bills? How's that all going to happen? So SMGI just naturally did it. It's just the antidote from inside there. When it's an inner child that comes up, she is separate from me enough in the journey that I see her as another, in the same way that I see my child or someone else's child. So the way that it is set up is like, I don't have to now overcome or even have that interaction with the resistance. So the way SMGI set up is like all of those resistance and blocks and all of the analytical overlay and the cerebral thinking and all of these things that are typically in my way during the day, they're not there in SMGI. They're taking a nap, they're dormant, they're doing something, and I don't know what, but they're not there. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, you know, it's why we never ask anyone to relax in SMGI. With almost every well-meaning modality out there, one of the first things they will say is relax your body, relax, you know, and it's very well intentioned, but from my perspective, a misunderstanding and disrespectful, because relaxation is often a net effect of connecting in that attunement to yourself through your body, to your parts through your body. Oftentimes, relaxation will be a net effect. But if we tell someone to relax, to a highly traumatized person, it sounds like, I'm doing it wrong. I need to do something different. It's not okay that I am the way I am. It's not okay to feel the way I'm feeling. I need to be different. How do I do it? Right? So it sets up a whole cascade of resistant thoughts and experiences within the person. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes, because, you know, I've been in a nice, yummy meditation class and they tell you relax and it's fine. It's fine. But fine is not good enough for us. We're going for the gold here. So when as the guide, when we meet you where you are, we're modeling for you to be able to meet your parts where they are, trapped somewhere in time, you know, in a difficult life event, difficult experience. They're reliving that over and over again. And then because the subconscious generalizes, any threat that's similar or later, any threat at all can just really bring that part to the forefront. And because we were merged with that part, because we haven't had practice to develop the skill to recognize, oh, there's a part of me that's really activated or triggered right now. There's a part of me. Okay, I can use my tools to come back to my center and tend to that part as a separate part of me. And that's part of the trick too. You tend to it, you dialogue with it, just like with an ally or anything else in your inner world, your pinky toe, whatever, as a separate somebody. It gives that safe distance so it's not overwhelming and you're not reliving, you're not merging and reliving that unfinished business that now lives as trauma in the body. And then once you connect to that part and the channel of love is now open and flowing, once you relieve that part of its fears, of limiting innocent misperceptions and so on, and then you bring it home to a special place in your heart or wherever, now the two of you are merged, but that part is now free. That traumatic experience, it's now complete for that part. Now that part has been rescued. So that particular stress is no longer in your nervous system. And now in its place, you've got extra life force vitality and those wonderful qualities, that part of you that were bound up in that part of you, but weren't able to be expressed because all the energy had to be in survival. So, it's like merging, not helpful, and then merging, the ultimate help. And that goes back, I'm not sure that I actually answered when you were asking about the number of sessions. I didn't, set out to make this up, but clients showed me that typically to go through all the steps of SMGI one time takes most people 3 sessions. And then once they do, now, they have a familiarity. So there's less resistance. Like, I don't know, there's a wolf and it's talking to me. That seems weird. Is that normal? And so after they finish 3 sessions, then, they already have a sense of knowing what to expect, that anything can show up and that they can always be safe. And so then the more they do, the more they're able to get, because it's not their first time and they're not more furtive. Like, it's completely natural when it's something brand new. And so that kind of 3 session cycle is just part of SMGI. And the things that happen in SMGI can happen within any session. We don't say, okay, today's session number 1, we're only going to do this. Today's 2, we're only going to do, right? We let the inner wisdom guide the session, and the session unfolds according to the client's inner wisdom. But there is kind of this typical pattern that flows through it in a universal way. And then something else you said earlier, I'm reminded of, that it works with, it's universal to our human nature. So it works with all populations. And you might modify certain elements depending on, if you're working with tiny little kids or people that speak another language or whatever. But, in the early days where I was just going out and offering it, volunteering, and, yoga teachers, hospital administrators, incarcerated people, homeless people, everyone in between, and all of them remarked to me, wow. And, whether they thought they knew it all, like the yoga teacher, well, I've done meditation for years, and that's the most powerful experience I ever had. And it was just a real simple little classroom demonstration. And that's kind of the magic of SMGI. What's left out is purposely left out so it doesn't get in the way and create resistance. And what is left in, it's very consciously left in to support you getting the most benefit. And so that's where, like in the training, you know, the certain words that we use, because the subconscious responds to words very literally. And so we just work with that. And that's one of the great things about coming from hypnosis. And, you know, when I trained with the Academy for Guided Imagery, Dr. Rossman, you know, he was clear. Well, this comes from hypnosis, right? And you might have a meditation and yoga class, and sometimes I ask, so what hypnosis training did you take? Oh no, that's just from my meditation teacher. But it's all, you know, it's clearly the same thing. And so let me just address that right now from the standpoint of SMGI. All hypnosis is where the predominant amount of your attention is absorbed. So like when you were saying in the middle of an aggressive conversation, you could choose to place the predominant amount of your attention on something that feels good in your inner world, right? So you're still aware of them doing what they're doing, but the predominant amount of your attention is absorbed in what you choose to absorb it in.
Yes.
You don't have to make it up from your left brain like a kid in school passing a test. Let's see, what would be the remedy? What should I focus on? A green tree with yellow bows? So in SMGI, we learn how to breathe, go to our right brain and activate that inner lexicon of power that will bring us the thing that is the remedy. So these, and then I also want to address when you were talking about the different brainwave states, like in Francine Shapiro's book on EMDR, she said, oh no, you know, my fellow scientist said it's not hypnosis because it doesn't enter into certain brainwave states. And I'm like, may she rest in peace, Francine, sweetheart. That's not how it works. A brainwave state doesn't equal hypnosis. Where your attention is absorbed equals hypnosis. So that could be on something sublime, or that could be on a past traumatic event.
Yes.
Right. So that's all it is. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's all it is. And so because it's been such a fascination for so many, you know, they've all studied different parts of it. And so bless them, they have helped us to have tools that it took them a long time to sort out, like, how is this working? What's it doing? And then for whatever reason, I was able to see kind of through some of my training, it's like, what we don't need to waste 20 minutes walking downstairs. You can just move your attention into your body, notice a sense, and you're there.
And in a healing session, saving 20 minutes is like a year. That's enormous. That's a huge thing. The other piece about SMGI that I know that this is going to change the planet, heal the planet, as I've said, is it is extremely unusual. So for someone to leave therapy and call all their friends and say, you got to call my therapist, you got to talk to her. But every time I have someone leave SMGI or their third session or a week after the third session or the first session or whatever, I get a call from 3 other people saying, what is this? What did you do to her? What is happening? I need this. I want this. That doesn't happen with talk therapy. Like, it just, there is this excitement. There is this fascination. There's this, I can't believe what I am experiencing. And the ripples out from that. And I, you know, one of the things is, having done the training, you currently are offering this only once a year in training people. And I know that there's so many people, the coaches, the therapists, the energy healers, the Reiki practitioners, the nutritionists, so many people that are already practicing, or people who want to practice something new, that to become certified in this 6-month training is so really easy to integrate into your life and to start bringing it into your practice inside of 6 months.
Yeah.
However, there is these little small windows right now in pockets of being able to get certified in it. And if you could talk for a moment about how you see this training and bringing the certification out right now, and the way that it's being, the way people are getting certified right now. Just speak a little bit about that training process, because I see it as this like little treasure trove of wanting to get people to go, hey, here's how you can bring this to the world. Not just, sure, of course, it'll, in my opinion, in my experience, it'll triple your business. But aside from that, it's here's how to bring this to more people. There's like this, I feel almost a sense of like responsibility
Yeah.
to bring it to more people to become certified, because I've never seen or experienced anything else like this. And I seriously think I've tried everything.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from clients when they get to me. I've tried everything. And I always say, great, that got you ready for what we're going to do. Well, for what's going to happen next, right? None of it was wasted. It'll all be part of what helps you do what's next. Yeah. It's 6 months because I learned when I was facilitating a group, like, I don't know, once a week for 12 weeks or something. And a woman that was just, so traumatized, her mom had locked her in a closet for days on end when she was a little kid and so on. High functioning adult, but still very, still carrying trauma. And she had a beloved therapist she was working with for years. She loved that therapist. And she said to me, but whenever my therapist tried to do any of this guided imagery stuff with me, it's just gone nowhere. But with you, it's different. So why is that? So I gave her just one sheet, bullet points, and said, take this to your therapist and ask her if she would just read off of this and walk you through it and see how it goes. She wrote me back, oh my gosh, amazing. After all these years, she read through those prompts and it was able to happen. So that's kind of, and that was a lot of years ago, but this protocol is actually very simple. You could be a shitty person and you could just read the protocol and people will get benefit, right? So it doesn't need to be a year or 3 years or whatever. And again, it's not against any other programs that are like that, but you can get from start to finish, you can get everything that SMGI is about in 6 months, and you can start delivering it to people, and you can have your cheat sheets to reference. But you get the whole arc and the philosophy, like you and I have been talking about. The philosophy, it's non-pathologizing, it's invitational, it's super respectful, right? So, and then you get experience with your classmates giving and receiving sessions. And it was always designed to be repeated for those, who wanted to get it more deep in their bones. And I went through my hypnotherapy. It was 9-month training and I went through it twice. So 18 months later is when I changed from engineering to a healer, a weirdo hypnotist healer. Pretty hard on my ego back in those days, but I have evolved. Mm-hmm. So you can get everything that you need to serve, if you have an existing client base, to serve them. I mean, and you can, even before the 6 months is over, you can start introducing them to the parts that you learned. Yeah. And then just seeing what happens and being like, oh my gosh. And then you can come back and repeat it for, hardly any money. But again, just to do it again, so that you feel more comfortable, because the only real limitation with SMGI is the guide's fears and discomforts. Like, is it going to work? What if they say something and I don't know what to do next? And your own unfinished business, unhealed parts will also come to the surface. Like, so, oh, great, I'm going to, move out of my corporate job and I am going to just do this full time. Great. And then some of those unconscious fears will come up, which is wonderful from the context of SMGI, because then you can just turn towards that comfort, follow it down. It's either clutter to clear, some subconscious program you don't need anymore, or it's a part of you that needs to be rescued and integrated. That's it. So, yeah, it's only 6 months. It is gentle. It's easy. It's packed with information. We meet for 2 hours once a week for 27 weeks. And then between that, there are videos that you can watch.
And
Anywhere.
we meet over Zoom. So
We
it's
do.
people from anywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. People from anywhere. Some people are like disappointed. Oh, I want to do it in person. And that's what we have the annual retreat for.
Mhm.
But SMGI is really meant to serve universally. So to be available to everyone as easy as possible, right? So you don't have to pay airfare and hotel, and on top of the training, which is, Lord have mercy. You want to talk about money. What I invested in my training, travel and airfare and hotels, not to mention the courses and the 5 years. So, and also the price is at a point where it reflects the value, the actual value, while still being as accessible as it can possibly be, because this is meant to get into the hands of as many people as are interested in it. Just like working in my private sessions, whenever I raise my prices again and again and again, it's like to, that edge of keeping it accessible, and taking care of the business. And especially now that there are so many more SMGI practitioners every day coming up out into the world, then there's going to be someone for everyone, where it doesn't, in one sense, like I said before, in the hands of an inept person, as long as they can read, a person will still get benefit. But when they are drawn to work with a practitioner, it's because if someone's drawn to work with you, Michelle, it's because there's something about you that they know that is going to catalyze and activate something in them. And they also know that they have a gift for you, right? And I'm talking on the unconscious level, right? And so my personal belief is that we all have come here to serve a certain group of people. Even if you came here to be a villain, right? You're a villain for a certain group of people.
It's true.
Right? I've seen villains and they just walk past me like I'm invisible. They weren't, I wasn't one of their people.
Right.
So, as a practitioner, or as a person incorporating this into your existing work, however you're using this, you have a sphere of influence that is looking to you and counting on you to do your best to serve them and to receive whatever their form of service is, even if it's adversarial mentoring.
Right. Beautiful. So can you talk about the way in which someone will know if the certification is for them? I often say, oh, you'll know, like after you've experienced it, or once you go to the website, you'll know there's this. And it feels to me like my knowing was because I had just started to really build a particular communication with my body from doing SMGI, that I know what a yes is, even if my mind is going, what. So I start to make decisions from different places now.
Yeah.
And it feels like the same is true for this training, because I've heard people say, but I'm already doing this and I've already done this. And do you know how many other courses I've taken? And
yeah.
And so, but there's this piece of like, just let the chatter sort of like fall away. And then it's still there. The whisper or the yes is still there.
For those who've spent a lot of time and money taking courses, your soul has known what it's doing. And there's some value that you've gotten out of those, some value. And some value that you'll be able to bring to others because of those. And yet it may not, if you sense it's not complete yet, like my hypnotherapy training was extraordinary, but in my body, it's like, there's something missing. So then the Academy for Guided Imagery training, and then the Center for Mind Body Medicine training, and the shamanic training. And then one day it's like all the pieces were there. So one of the great things about all the things that you've already spent time and money on is that you'll get that feeling in your body. Like I saw you get at retreat, where it's just like, oh, it's all so easy. It's so simple. And you will be able to appreciate what we're doing in contrast to some of the things that you learned that were more arduous and difficult and kind of conniving and right. So the more you have done, the more you will appreciate like what this is. And you don't have to have done those things either. You can just like, whoa, wow, this, I feel different. Wow. The people really respond to this when I guide them through it. Wow. So wherever you come from, whether it's just a corporate world and you want to like consider transitioning out, see what that might be like, or you've been on the path as a healer, spent a lot of money, because all the programs out there, they're significant cost. And not always a lot of return on investment. Like when I was talking about the 2-day workshops, where really it's just lectures about theories, like could read that in a book.
Right.
And even one day when I get the SMGI book written, it will still be directing people to experience it with a certified SMGI guide. And the reason that there's a certification program is not for the clients, because they don't care. Did you go to Harvard? Did you go to Yale? What are your qualifications? That might happen 1 in 1,000. They don't care. All they care about is, can you help me? They're not going to ask a Peruvian medicine woman, what are your qualifications? Where did you study? Are you certified? No. But it is important for you as the practitioner to know that you have the knowledge that comes from my 25 years of training and practice, of all kinds of things that have gone unexpectedly and turned out to be like, oh my gosh, amazing, but naturally created some resistance and like, what do we do here? So when you get certified, then you'll have this validation that you have ticked all the boxes. You have all that you need. Even if you don't consciously remember it, it's in your subconscious, and you can refer to it with the cheat sheets. So, and then beyond that, you can go through a second time, and you can get licensed if you want, licensed to teach parts of the protocol. Not the entire training, but parts of it, which is for some people that get invited to do group events or workshops, whether in person or on Zoom, they can be licensed to teach parts of SMGI. And of course, they demonstrate that they grok it. They understand the philosophy, and they understand the tools and how to use them. And they have benefited from them enough that they're able to hold space and healthy boundaries, so they can allow the magic to unfold, whether it's with a single person or a group. So does that answer what you were asking?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the, something that it prompted, or that I was thinking about as you were talking, is as being an SMGI guide, you said there's something that the clients, they come to you as a gift for you, to give you a gift. It feels very similar to me too, in like all of Dolores Cannon's books. She talks about how the part in each session where the client's subconscious mind is talking to her, we get that inside of SMGI, that when we are bearing witness to the healing in others, it continues to be this waterfall unto us as the practitioners. And that's just tremendous. With every session, it feels like salve on my soul, just being present for it.
The image that comes to mind in this moment right now is of my daughter being younger and me saying, come over here, sit next to me so I can love you. Right. And just her letting me stroke her, for what that does for me. Right. Right. And we don't stroke people in our sessions, but generally there's no touching. Yeah. However, it is a way that we can love you when we are holding space for you, when we're being with you in that way, you are letting us love you, and you're receiving it, right? And then we're receiving the benefit. It's, you know, like if you're petting your cat and your cat starts purring, you know, that's yummy, right? So yeah, and that circle of reciprocity is really an understanding at the base of SMGI, because we're all here as souls, you know, on that higher consciousness or unconscious level. We're all here to give and receive from each other. And sometimes, you know, the villain gives us and takes from us in ways that are darn uncomfortable until we resolve and heal that. And then it's like, you MFer, oh, you did so good. You helped me find my feet. You helped me find my power. Wow. High five to you. Wow. Wow. I would not have done it different. And gosh, I wish you well. I wish you well from the bottom of my heart. And I'm grateful. Thank you. And, you know, that's not just lip service. When you know, especially if you've been violated by individuals or groups, then when you get to that place where you can recognize that you have transmuted it, you've alchemized it into some kind of valuable golden part of your power, then you can be truly authentically grateful for what happened. It's not just an idea, you know. Be grateful. What didn't kill you made you stronger. You know, that's just like, you know, let's do this for real, or let's forget about it. Or let's forget about it.
All right. Well, this has been so amazing. Thank you so much. Every time we have these conversations, I get more and more understanding, like walking around it, understanding it, being immersed in it from the inside out, outside in, up, down, down, in, out, all of it. So, and thank you for creating this modality that I feel so blessed to be in the front lines of watching how it really changes people's lives and their experience, their human experience, moving into true joy and freedom and happiness that they thought wasn't going to be for them this time around. And they find it quickly.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you and the others that have been drawn to this work to learn it, because the image that comes to mind right now is that, you know, we're just giving water to the wounded, and they're just like getting instantly refreshed and on their feet. And and there's a lot of walking wounded, you know, and laying wounded. And so I feel so grateful to be a part of a team of boots on the ground. It's not just me with an overwhelming caseload.
Right.
There are these other beautiful souls with your own rich histories of triumph over adversity, and, you know, all of the experiences that you bring to your life and to your work and your relationships with the people that come to you and are in your life. So very heart yummy, inspiring and relieving for me. And there's meant to be a lot of us.
Yes.
So, you know, so anyone that hears about it, I'm just trusting that their own inner guidance will let them know if it's something that is part of their sacred soul path to participate.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
My pleasure, sweetheart.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.